Let's talk vibrato. B.B. King has one of the most distinctive vibratos of any blues player. And what it sounds like is this. So, let's take a look at the elements of vibrato. What I'm doing is, since I'm in the key of G here, I'm going to start with a G note. And it makes sense when you're adding vibrato to a note to do it to the root tone. Actually, any tone, really, but we'll start with the root tone. So then, I can fret the note the way I would normally fret it with my finger perpendicular to the frets, or what I can do for the vibrato is shift my hand around so that my finger is kind of pointing down this way rather than pointing up this way. So I shift it not quite 90 degrees, but I just kind of twist it. And you can watch that movement. My finger in the normal playing position, my finger for vibrato. Now, in addition to my finger, watch my hand. The palm of my hand is now moving from against the fingerboard or slightly below the fingerboard, where it would be in the normal playing position, to this. I'm removing my hand and putting it down here so it can swing back and forth like a pendulum or a fulcrum. Right? And then I have my thumb slightly over the neck. And I've assumed I hang my pinky out like that. I want to make this hand as heavy as I can so it's easy to, I can get some movement on the string by swinging my hand around and using the weight of my hand to move the string. So then what I have to do is I have to get a firm grip on that G note and move it. So what I'm doing is this. I'm playing the G note, fretting it, then I'm swinging my hand back like this way, and by doing that I keep my finger fixed on the note. I don't let it wiggle. I just keep it like my hand is, kind of pretend your hand is soldered together and you can't move the fingers independently of one another. So with that in mind, you swing your hand, and along with it comes the index finger, and hence, if you do it right, when you move your hand back, the index finger should come down. I'm just keeping this hand and going like that. Right? Now, if I do that really fast, I get a faster vibrato, obviously. And it adds so much to a note. Listen if I play the note without the vibrato. Just kind of lays there, kind of has no life. But if I go, it has a whole different vibrancy to it. Right? So that's pretty much the technique for bending that I use for bending a fixed note. Any note, pick any note. I would pick one on the second string and probably one on the third string. And practice bending those. Not bending, adding vibrato to them. Now, let me mention this because it's subtle, but a lot of students ask me about this. Check it out. What you're doing when you're adding vibrato, you're adding a vibrato to the basically the fundamental tone, or the G. It doesn't sound like, even though I'm bending the note up and down, it doesn't sound like it's going up and down. So you need to do it fast enough so that it just sounds like G, but moving. You don't really hear the note going. You can if you slow it down, but it just sounds more like the G. So the same thing occurs on the third string. Same positioning, same hand movement. So practice that. That's kind of tricky. Well, I found it tricky. Slower vibrato, faster vibrato. The speeds of the vibrato are dependent on what you want to do. I don't know. I don't think there's any rules. A lot of people will say, oh, you need to bend, add vibrato, and add the vibrato in the exact tempo of the tune and some kind of subdivision, or make it triplets or make it 16th notes. You know what? Music is music. Do what you want to do. Don't pay attention necessarily to other people's rules and whatnot, because you know what? In the blues, the way I think, there is no rules. It's the blues. Let's talk about the B.B. King signature gliss and rake. So first of all, let's define those terms. A gliss is when you play a note and you slide down. Okay? So any note and slide down. I'm playing, in this case, G with my little finger and sliding down. Now what B.B. King does is he plays a gliss, but he rakes. Okay, so if you play it with a rake, let's define rake first. A rake is typically when you rake literally across probably 4 or 5 strings, but you mute them, so all you get is a percussive sound. If I do it at the 12th fret, of course, I'm going to get harmonics. That's what. So then you rake across strings 5, 4, 3, and 2, and you mute them, but then you continue your downward pick stroke across the first string, and you make that one sound. So you have the G note on top, and then you immediately start to gliss downwards. So the way I'm raking is this. Well, I'm using a downstroke with my pick, but the way I'm muting strings 5, 4, 3, and 2 is kind of, I'm using actually my first finger kind of laid across the strings here without pushing them down, and then I kind of lay my second finger on them to be sure I have a backup. And then I play really fast, and so the rake essentially is a grace note. I don't add time value to the rake. Okay? So if you play that slowly, it sounds like. Okay, and I'm doing it with a high note of G because we're playing in the key of G, the B.B. King gliss.